Hello, everyone. Welcome to Diamond Debates with Avi Kravitz. If it's not obvious enough to you, I'm Avi Kravitz, and we're back with the topic that's arguably the most contentious that we've had yet, and certainly contentious in certain parts of the industry, and that is lab-grown diamonds. But we're going to approach it from a bit of a different angle this time, not necessarily putting lab-grown versus natural, which is generally how these discussions evolve. But I think there are interesting things happening in the lab grown space in its own right. And so we're going to explore that. And to do so, we have none other than Tom Chatham, who is the chairman of Chatham Incorporated. But I think more importantly, Tom boasts a unparalleled family legacy, continuing in the tradition of his father, Carol Chatham, who was truly a pioneer in experimenting with synthetic diamonds and gemstones, and I think laid the scientific groundwork for what was to follow. So, Tom, thank you for joining us, or thank you for joining me. And
You're welcome.
firstly, did I get that description correct? Was that right?
Uh, Which part?
The description of you and your family.
80 years plus in this
Amazing.
business. Yeah.
Amazing. So before we get to the actual debate and we start asking questions in our back and forth, I just need to give a quick shout out to Sarine Technologies, has been supporting Diamond Debates series for over 35 years. Sarine has asked the industry's big questions, providing advanced AI technology to drive the diamond sector forward. Imagining a more efficient and more innovative industry is central to Sarine's DNA and essential to long-term growth across the entire diamond ecosystem. So the admin is out of the way, and let's get to it. Tom, the title of this debate or the headline is "Lab-Grown Diamonds at an Inflection Point," and my thinking behind that topic is that I think there are interesting dynamics going on within the lab-grown space that suggests that there's some sort of a disruption of the disruptor type of thing, and changes happening within the lab-grown space. So my first question and point of debate that we can throw out there is that correct? How do you read into that scenario? Is lab grown at an inflection point?
I don't see it as being at an inflection point. There's definitely changes going on. And in preparation for this discussion, I started looking sideways. I'm in the gem industry, and that's all I am in. And some of my competitors and fellow crystal growers are looking at the bigger picture into the electronics industry, quantum computing, and I'm starting to get some feelings, some answers to how everybody can sell things so cheaply, or why they are. It's very frustrating for all of us. But this, to me, looking back in the last 15 years, I don't think there's an inflection point. I think it's just a perfect storm that has occurred, both in the natural industry,
Yeah.
the pricing, and 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 in the lab grown industry. What's going on there? There's a lot of misconceptions about what we can do and what we can't do. Uh, but that's neither here nor there. It looks like we can make a perfect diamond with a push of a button, and we definitely can't.
Yeah, I mean that is a perception that's out there. But before we get into that, where you say there's a frustration that the product is being sold very cheaply, is that not just a function of supply and demand, that there's an oversupply of goods and that's pushed prices down, and how do you overcome that scenario?
I blame it on it's not even poor marketing; it's an absence of marketing. Unfortunately, the people that are behind the most growth don't really have a handle on marketing anything, and to them it's just price, 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 and that's
Yeah.
It's mostly coming out of India that way. And I dealt in India. Matter of fact, some of the first customers my father ever had were in Jaipur. So I know the culture. I mean, not thoroughly, of course, but they don't seem to be good marketers. And their idea of marketing is price, change the price, make it cheaper.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you point to the growers in India in that scenario. I would rather look at the retailers in the United States who are selling on price. The growers are are producing and they're producing a lot of product, and I think that's where their mistake is that there's no sort of control of supply, and so they're selling according to the competitive market, but selling at a lower price at retail. That's how lab grown is being marketed. So I would look at any marketing initiative in the retail market. You know, why isn't there a messaging beyond price for lab grown?
Well, first of all, we have to totally understand, the retail market in the US. You buy the same stone at Natural Diamond at Tiffany's versus Signet, and they're going to be two different prices. Uh, that's just a reflection of their uh, marketing prowess and their status, their positioning in the industry. Uh, but I ran into something else that might make a difference in everyone's mind of why you go below operating costs to such an extent, because I know how much it costs. Uh, the machinery is still expensive. A good press is around $400,000 before it gets shipped to you, and it doesn't work right off the freight, And the same holds true for CVD. Uh, but what I have found in my research is a lot of people are looking at this quantum physics application. And one of those chips, instead of selling for $100 a carat, sells for $60,000 a carat
Hmm.
right now. So and I know one person that's doing it, and that's Diamond Foundry. It's not easy to do. It's totally different chemistry than growing gem diamond. Uh, what we call, an eye clean or D flawless is when it comes down to a crystallographer's view of that structure, it's like looking at a garbage dump. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff inside of a diamond that is grown for gem purposes. Quantum physics requires extreme purity and the knowledge to relocate atomic structures within the structure of diamond, moving nitrogen around. Uh, I'm not thoroughly voiced or I'm not thoroughly up on exactly how it works, but I read enough to know that it's difficult, very
Yeah,
difficult. And
yeah.
so maybe people are just doing anything they want with their gem quality, stones while they do research on the quantum physics because that is the bigger market.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the direction that De Beers is pushing their element six lab grown supply. They stopped the Lightbox program and shifted everything to the high tech focus. And I think it's almost like at this stage a niche area. That you have the diamond foundries and the De Beers that are looking at that opportunity, and I agree with you that that is the bigger opportunity. But then your growers in India, in China perhaps, are not looking at that. They have a background in the diamond industry.
Yeah.
There are site holders who are the major producers and growers of lab grown in India, and so they're pushing it into the gem market. And so when you talk about the marketing mistake, let's say, of the lab grown industry, are you suggesting that they're not pushing it to that high tech application? Or are you saying that there's a fault in the messaging within the gem world?
I think what I'm trying to say is a lot of them, and I don't know all of them, of course, but a lot of them I think are disposing of most of their production the way they are now in the gem field, regardless of cost or regardless of what they can get for the stone, while they apply their knowledge to this other electronic application. It's the only thing that makes
Yeah.
sense, you
Yeah.
know.
But I mean, if a grower has paid off his growing machine, whatever it is, then the cost is covered. You know, if it's
And
not like it's not like a mine where there's you're going to correct me, I know, but if in with a mine there's a rough price per carat that they need to there's like a threshold, and if the because it's an ongoing operation, it's an ongoing cost that is, it's a capital outlay on an ongoing basis that they need to maintain a certain price per carat. And I'm not sure that that applies in the growing space because once you've covered that 400,000 layout, then the rest is icing, or it's
yeah.
correct. Go ahead, correct me.
It's again, I've done a lot of research on this just for this discussion. There's a lot of maintenance involved with both types of systems, CVD and
Yeah,
HPHT. Those presses are doing some amazing things, but the tungsten carbide anvils turn into like peanut butter, and they have to be replaced and they have to be remachined. Uh, there's constant maintenance on all of this machinery. Now, it's not at the $400,000 level. I agree with that. And the machines will pay for themselves. The initial costs definitely were paying for those machines.
yeah.
Uh, and then you do reach a point of, you know, profitable returns without huge investments of people or materials. So you're right. Again, it's I keep using the word perfect storm, but it just, the people who are involved, they obviously have a lot of money. They have the funds, they have the knowledge. They're in the right country for cutting and what have you. So I don't know what to blame it on.
Well, this is what I think is happening, that there's the growing market. It's the lab grown space is not structured like the natural diamond industry where you have a dealer market operating. So you have the grower that's supplying and then they it's the same company essentially that's cutting and polishing that lab grown diamond, and they're supplying direct to the retailer. And what I think has happened in the growing space is that there has been some sort of, I don't know if consolidation is the right word, but I think the weaker players have left the market, but there's still a high production rate. But I don't think that's where the margins are. The margins are at retail.
Yes.
And even though the retailers are selling at a discount to a natural diamond at a big different discount, they're still gaining massive margins. And so from a selling on price point of view, I still sort of direct my critique at retail jewelers who are selling lab grown.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, what sells for Tiffany, at one price is a different price over, at Signet, getting two, total opposites of the retail trade. Uh, Everybody has a different, cost of doing business. And um, I mean, I don't know what the typical markup is, to tell you the truth, on
Well,
what we.
yeah, well, I think that's another contentious point within the grown industry, and kind of it's the initial thought that brought this topic up for me, is that there isn't a consistency of pricing at retail, even though there is more of a standardization of the product, as compared to natural. So consumers, they see a 2 carat, whatever, VS2 lab grown diamond online, and they see the same diamond in a store and the same diamond at Walmart, but they're all at different price points. And I'm not sure if you can justify that as much as you could on where there's a nuance, there's more of a nuance in the natural space. Are you following me?
I follow you. I don't necessarily, well, I don't agree or disagree. It just, I mean, we have to recognize that there are different marketplaces, and for the same stone and natural. All those examples are going to be different prices
Yeah, but there's
at retail.
but with natural there are other factors involved. There's there's fluorescence, there's all sorts of other characteristics, and I guess this is more a question. Do you have that in lab grown? Do you have the nuance beyond the four C's, let's say, that differentiates one stone with the same four C's, let's say, to another one?
Uh, I think I follow where you're going, but you know, I got to get back to the what the perception of the growers is that we can produce all D flawless stones. I mean, we definitely can. And the idea that it's now a standardized, DE VVS one stone, that's what is selling. So that's what is put out there. We get
Yeah.
a lot of I got thousands of eyes, I quality stones. That was mostly from the beginning of our work, but uh, there is no perfect process for sure. The way these crystals grow, there are differences in the same run in color and quality. Drives us crazy. I mean, that's why I got out of the colored diamond business. We were growing pinks, yellows, and blues, and you know, I want cornflower blue, and I want bubblegum pink. I don't want anything else. And what do I do with the other 500 stones? I I quit. I mean, white is a lot easier than marketing color. So we are we can afford to satisfy a market demand for a niche, and that is, the 2 to 4 carat stone, uh, not necessarily D, but E color and
Yeah.
VVS. So, I mean, there is some, yeah, it looks like it becomes standardized, but it's feeding the market what it wants.
Well, that's where that's the it's almost like the added value of lab grown among jewelers and among consumers is that they can get that D flawless at an affordable price. And so that's where the demand is. And and there is a notion, and we saw, with the GIA changing its certification or grading of, the way it grades lab grown. Their reasoning was that the demand and the supply, or the demand and influencing the supply of goods has narrowed the range of grading of lab grown diamonds, and so you don't need that full color scale. You don't need that full clarity scale as you might have before. And, my friend Idan Golan from Tenoris, who publishes a lab-grown price list, he makes the point that he's gradually stopped listing those lower color and clarity prices on his price list. So it does seem that there is a narrowing of the range of lab-grown goods that are out there.
It is narrowing. I can't deny that, but it's almost like back in the 60s and 70s, our emerald and ruby was pretty included, and that's what the marketplace wanted, because compared to the naturally occurring colored gemstones, which are also included, ours look just the same. So that we tried to uh, uh, amplify that and ride on those coattails, which we all do, of the natural product. But the marketplace pushed us, because of competition, into cleaner and cleaner stones. So yes, our offering in color now is pretty clean. It's almost the same thing that has happened in the diamond, because that's what people want. I said, if I'm going to buy this lab grown stone, I want the best.
Yeah,
I don't,
yeah.
I don't want third best, fourth best,
Doesn't that then commoditize the deflawless? So consumers want something unique, and everyone's got a deflawless, 2 carat, 3 carat stone.
I think it does. I mean, it certainly, from you and our point of view, it definitely commoditizes that. Um, the natural still offers all those other things because they have them. They got to get rid of them. Although there's a lot they can't get rid of now. Uh,
Well, yeah,
that
I'm wondering if it affects demand for a deflawless natural diamond, and does it take away some from the rarity of those goods?
well, it all depends what you believe in. I myself personally,
Yeah.
I could afford it. I would not buy my wife a 3 carat D flawless diamond natural because it's too expensive. I could, I mean, there's a point. I don't drive a Ferrari, I drive a Lexus. It's not cheap, but it
Yeah.
doesn't cost 200,000. Um, I could afford it, but I won't buy it. And I think that's what's missing in some of this narrative is that diamonds just got so damn expensive
But
that
again, isn't that a function of supply and demand? That those goods are rare, and the better the quality, the bigger the stone, the fewer there are, irrespective of lab grown. That high price range is a function of what the market is calling.
100% the function of, or is there some manipulation going on with availability?
Well, okay, I mean that's a question on the legacy and history of the of the diamond industry. Um, I'm not sure if I have an issue with that, frankly, um, from an industry perspective. A Birkin handbag, they control the supply of those handbags, and that drives a desire for that handbag. And so I don't think it's unique to the diamond industry. It's just because of the legacy of control that the industry has, as we all know, that there's a negative perception to it. But I don't have a problem with suppliers maintaining the rarity of a product to increase the desire for it.
Well, it doesn't come by itself, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think one of the parts of this perfect storm is the lack of marketing that has gone on in the natural industry, and I understand why. I've been in the same position of De Beers being the only one spending the money, and then you have competitors come
Yeah,
in and ride your coattails. And I certainly understand why De Beers quit, paying the bills.
yeah,
But that affected the market too, because
yeah, yeah,
just look at Japan. Never used natural diamond. They didn't use anything. I mean, they invented the product category for Japan, and it became the second biggest buyer.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a real good case book study of how to create a market and how to, and they
yeah.
did it well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they're trying to do it in a more complicated market now. But I'm curious, getting back to the lab grown question. You say you played that role for the lab grown industry because, as we mentioned, your family has this legacy and was a pioneer in the space. What was your initial sort of messaging on it? If it wasn't price, what was the added value that you pushed out there?
Well, the added value, and I did this in 1996 at a JCK show. I introduced our lab grown white diamond, rough, uh, terrible quality. Half of them weren't even cuttable. But my whole effort was this is a piece of history. This is technological history. It's like the first Apple computer type of thing.
Yeah,
It wasn't necessarily embraced that way, nor was the Apple computer, Macintosh. Uh, I mean, I had a lot of threats during that JCK show. I mean, people
If we
were.
had more time, I would love to hear those stories.
I don't know if I want to mention their names
Yeah, yeah,
for, legal reasons, but I mean, I understood. Uh, I mean, a typical one was Preston Foy, was the director of the Diamond Information or Diamond Promotion Council, and he came up to me at my booth like a deer in the headlights. He said, Tom, what are you doing? What's this mean? And I said, boy, this means job security for you because now they need you to promote natural diamonds because of me. And he just kind of shook his head and walked away. I had some more derogatory and some not so derogatory, like Dick Lidicote, good friend, knows me very well, knew the family, uh, testified against us at the FTC trials, that kind of thing. But we were good friends, and we both had a lot of respect for each of our individual skills. But he came up to me and he says, Tom, you can't do this. And I said, Dick, this is what I do. This is my life, my livelihood, but it's my whole mission in life. And it
well,
was my father's.
yeah.
So
I mean, getting back to that, to the messaging, because th those stories that I'll hear more of them when I see you one day soon, please God, and we'll have a drink together. But that human accomplishment, and since those early days, the advancement that we've seen, particularly in the last, you know, up to a decade, I would say, and the technology keeps improving. In fact, even over the last 3 years, we've seen, I think, incredible improvements in the technology. That has to be a selling point. I don't know why that. I mean, there are companies that try to push that narrative. You know that it's a product of human accomplishments, and we should celebrate that. But I wonder if one can fit that into being a viable selling point that elevates the value of the product. You know, because I think that's the big challenge facing the lab-grown space, that it's getting to a point where the value, even for retailers, and I think that there is going to be a disruption in lab-grown among retailers because there's too much of a discrepancy on price. And so I think you're going to see retail squeeze down more toward low wholesale levels because their margins are ridiculous. But at some point, there has to be an elevation of value. I think that they can emulate, in a way, the natural diamond industry in that sense.
I agree, and I don't think it's being used to best advantage today by most of the producers. I mean, that is why the basis that we sell our stones, all of our stones on, is the technological achievement of what this represents. If you go on our website at
Yeah,
chatham.com,
yeah,
you'll see a lot of stories about this and information about it. It let's look at something in between this. Look at a Patty Philippe watch. Some of them cost $250,000.
yeah.
Man-made, man-made. There's nothing rare about it. Well, I guess there is something rare because they only make so many a year, but they could make as many as they want. They could make as many Ferrari as they want.
Well, they control their supply. They hold back their supply.
Yeah.
And there is superb branding in the watch industry, and I think that's something that the diamond industry struggles with across the board in both natural and lab grown. Um,
Yeah.
it's left to diamond jewelry to brand, and I think there might be an opportunity in the lab grown space to develop a more sort of premium product, I guess. I think some companies are doing it. You know, you see amongst the signet brands, there's a different price point across their offerings. Even Pandora has different price points in their lab grown. But
What,
premium, I think
what we're trying to,
yeah,
yeah, what we're trying to do now is create a council of growers. We've been trying to get it together for the last couple of years. We had one that fell apart. It was misused, but we are in the middle of forming another one, a lab-grown diamond council. Uh, I'm not running it or anything. I'm certainly helpful to them. Not sure where it's going to be based. Diamond Foundry is very much behind it, which they reluctantly did not join us before, and now they are. But
Hmm.
their emphasis is definitely not on gemstones. It's on electronics. But we're trying to get it together, and if we can, we're hopefully we're going to do something at JCK, and I don't think it can't happen because we got like herding cats. We can't get them all together. Everybody's got a different message they want to get across, different agendas, but we all recognize there's a problem. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's very needed in the lab grown industry. It needs a structure, and it needs a body that advocates not only on the selling of the product. I think there are regulatory issues. There are all the challenges that the natural diamond industry and all these industry organizations grapple with. They apply also to lab grown, and there's no one even elevating the status of the lab grown industry within the jewelry industry. There's a lot of work to do there,
I
you
would
know.
agree, and I would blame it on probably just one person whom I don't know, who because there are 10 to 20,000 growers now in the world.
Yeah, it's a problem that it's a
And it's taken 250 years for people to figure out how to grow a diamond. And all of a sudden, we've got 20,000 competitors.
right.
Did the light bulb all of a sudden go off? I don't think so.
Well, it leads to too much supply at the end of the day, and as long as that scenario is there, it's going to depreciate the product. You can't fight market forces in that sense. So I don't know what you do about that. But again, it's the retailers who are climbing in and earning those margins. So it's an interesting space.
I'm
Yeah,
hopeful that the industry will uh, self-adjust, maybe not voluntarily. I mean, we can't afford to continue to do this. We're going to quit. I went through this back in the 90s. We had a price war in emerald that
yeah,
took, it down to near nothing, cutting costs. It was $5, $7 a carat wholesale. And I told it, the other growers, I mean, I didn't go anywhere near that. I said, you're crazy. You can't run these laboratories and these people at this price per carat. I
yeah,
mean, you're
yeah,
stealing my customers, but you're not making any money.
yeah, yeah.
And people like Kyocera, huge company, they backed off. Byron backed off. Gilson backed off. I bought both of those guys. They just said we quit. I bought them out. It just
It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Tom, thank you very much. I think there's a very interesting point that you made about the high tech and the tech application. That's where the opportunity lies, and I think there's very interesting nuance within the lab grown space itself. We tend to focus on this natural versus lab grown. But there's a whole world within the synthetic or lab-grown diamond market that's fascinating, I think, from a market point of view.
Yeah, and I think first of all, we have to stop throwing these verbal rocks at each other. Like this natural is a billion years old, or now it's creeped in. It's taken a billion years for this diamond to grow. Well, it's I just argued with somebody that I think Rob Bates had on. It didn't take a billion years to grow. I know. I'm an expert at this. It doesn't. It can't. Don't
Well,
worry.
it takes a billion years to
It's
travel,
active. I,
to
I want to
travel.
show you something. This is out of my garden. Granite. This piece of granite is from 1.5 to 3 billion years old. You want that?
Don't break that illusion. Don't kill the illusion. Tom, thanks very much. It's been
You're
a
welcome.
pleasure, and I appreciate all you bring to the industry. You've got a lot to give, and I hope people recognize that. Is there anything that you want to plug or shout out before we go? Do you have a book that you've written or something that people should be aware of?
I have written a book. It's called The Chatham Legacy. It's a story about my father and everything he went through. And my joining him and the work we did together. Uh, None of the other crystal growers have ever left anything for historical value. Pierre Gilson, Trueheart Brown with the Ruby, Kashan Ruby, and Byron, they all just quit. And I wanted to leave something, it's a kind of a milestone in what my father created. And that's available on our website at chatham.com.
I forget which book I read it in. I've kind of been reading a lot of these historic accounts of the diamond industry as a whole, and every now and then there's a chapter on the history of growing synthetics. And I forget which book it was, but there was an interesting account of your father's experimentation, and I'll send it to you privately which book it
Yeah.
was, but
One of the books that I found to be extremely valuable and it's very enjoyable to read is The Diamond Makers by Robert Hazen.
I'm not
It,
familiar. Okay.
I know it's probably not in print now, but I know it's still available. And it's a very good read of the past 200 years before my father. He's not even mentioned in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
But all the attempts and all the lives that were lost in trying to grow diamond.
Right. It was not a non-dangerous um activity. People took risk.
Yeah, my father almost, he took out his father's house,
That's what I read.
yeah.
That's what I read. Amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to look into that. As I said, we kind of pivot lab grown versus natural. And I think there is something to be said about that within the way the market has developed. But there's a whole backstory which is fascinating, and I think other dynamics that are worth exploring. As I said earlier. So thank you for a really engaging and fun discussion. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you asking. We both of us, both of our industries have things to learn and overcome. Uh, but I think we'll get there.
I think so too. I think so too. Thank you very much, Tom, and
You're
thank you
welcome.
everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.